I'll just do a quick audio check. Nick, can you hear us okay?
So they'll get you when they get to you, but they could.
Yeah.
So I'm right there.
Yes, this is Nick. I can hear you now.
Okay.
She moved in.
Lots of conversation. I'll mute it for another minute.
We have a quorum here and we're starting officially at 12:03. Let's go ahead, introductions. Let's start with Mayor Hopkins.
I'm here.
Did you get that?
I got it. Congratulations. Oh, Vince counts. Olivia Lunsford, Fast Fanning.
Jerry Pierce, City of Fairbanks.
Jackson Fox, Fast Lane. Larry Church, Mayor, City of North Pole.
Or little, DOT and PF.
And online,
This is Nick Zarnicki with DEC.
thanks, Nick. Okay, I assume others will be joining us soon. First, we want to approve oh, wait, you need people around the room. I am sorry. Let's start with our newsletter.
Jack Barnwell, News Banner. Brett Nelson, DOT. John Gale, Rural.
And walking in the room is Mayor-elect.
In the onion.
And here comes Scott.
I can read off the guest list online. We've got Ben White with DOT, Randy Bailey with DOT, Bryant Wright and Wanley with R&M Consultants, Phoebe Bradley with Kenny Engineering, Rachel Vassar with FNSB Parks and Rec, and then Patrick Gilchrist, UAC, and Lauren Apshe. And sorry, I don't remember your affiliation if you have one. Let's see.
Senator Bjorkman's office.
Senator Bjorkman's office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Takes us to number 3, the approval of the October 22nd, 2025 agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Warren, seconded by Mayor Church. Are there any additions or changes to that? I'm going to make one. In our packet on page 15 is a letter of support for the city of Fairbanks for a project. Jackson had to produce that on the quick for the city at the time. Normally, we have approval by the board, as you're gonna see later on, for the letters of support for the borough project. I would like to just marriage the two together, so I'd like to add page 15, which is the letter of support for the city. And add that in consideration of 8B, an action item, and we'll take both those up at the same time, if that's okay with the board.
I'll second that.
Okay, with that one change, would you call it the roll, Jen?
Yes, Ms. Little.
Yes.
Mayor Church. Yes. Mr. Kraus. Yes. Mr. Cleaver.
Yes.
Mayor Hopkins.
Yes.
And Mr. Zarnicki.
Yes.
Okay, the agenda is approved. Brings us to number 4, the meeting minutes for September 24th.
Move to approve the meeting minutes from September 24th, 2025.
Second.
First. Any additions or changes? Seeing none, Jackson.
Yep, Mayor Church. Yes. Ms. Little.
Yes.
Mayor Hopkins. Yes. Mr. Cleaver.
Yes.
Mr. Kraus. Yep. And Mr. Zarnicki.
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to number 5. Jackson, you've got the floor.
Okay, page 13 of your packet has our staff report for activities over the past month since the last time the policy board met. Just want to highlight a few things for you here today. First of which, under regular meetings, we did have our quarterly statewide MPO coordination meeting down in Wasilla about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And this is an all-day meeting with the other 2 MPOs in the state and many different DOT representatives across all regions that serve our MPOs. One of the main topics that we focused in on that meeting was trying to drill down our federal fiscal year 2026 sub allocations of federal funding to each of the MPOs. I came down to that meeting prepared with my calculations, utilizing the federal formula, and was happy to see that on the DOT side, when they presented their calculations, we matched dollar for dollar. So I have pretty high confidence on what our revenue amounts are going into this new federal fiscal year. The one thing that is still up in the air that we have to perform some additional calculations on is the amount of carryover funds from previous federal fiscal years that are currently unspent. There is, I would say the bulk of those carryover funds are owed to the Matsu region, but some of those are available to us, and we're trying to research back what the split is, and it's different for each fund category. So a little bit more work to do. I'm gonna produce those calculations and share those with DOT and the Matsu MPO to kind of compare notes and see if they come up with any different answer for that. But what I'm hoping to do is to program these revenue amounts into our transportation improvement program for next month's meetings. At our technical committee meeting and fall board meeting next month, you're going to see both an administrative modification as well as a proposed amendment to our transportation improvement program, which not only reflects the new revenue amounts, but will also reflect some minor changes and major changes to existing projects within that. And I've given the deadline for DOT project managers to send me their change request as of this Friday, so that next week I can wrap up those documents to present to you all next month. For project and planning meetings, we did convene a meeting of the Seasonal Ability Task Force, which is all the area maintenance managers across the two cities, the borough and the state, to develop a plan for this year's winter maintenance forum. We have scheduled that forum to be on October 28th, next Tuesday, from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Norwin Library. We are changing the format of that forum this year. Typically, it's a presentation style where we get each area maintenance manager up on a stage, and you got 10 minutes to let the public know what's going to happen, what's not going to happen with regard to snow removal this coming winter. We decided to change the format to be more of a booth or station type exhibit at the library. So DOT can have a booth, the Borough Parks and Rec can have a booth, City Public Works can have a booth, the school district can have a booth. So all these, any entity that does maintenance on transportation facilities will have a booth, and they can share whatever information that they would like, that they know might be burning on the public's mind. They could be passing out job applications to try to find, more operators and mechanics, for their department. DOT might be sharing information about the use of brine to kind of clear up some misconceptions about, their operations there. Things of that nature, whatever they would like to push and any swag that they would like to give out. We will also have who maintains my roadmap up, likely on the screen. So as individuals are interested, we can point them to this as a resource, but as they identify they have an issue on this particular road, we can align them with the correct maintenance department that takes care of that road and send them over to that booth to get their direct questions answered. So looking forward to that for next week. Underneath correspondence, with the government shutdown, I've continued our interagency consultation on the air quality conformity and lifting the conformity freeze via email with our partners at Federal Highways and EPA. Federal Highway staff are pretty secure, staying in the office and getting paid because their positions are funded through the Highway Trust Fund. EPA is a little bit less secure. Last time I talked to them, they're still at work, but they could be furloughed any day. They might be just running off some existing budget appropriation, but they preferred to handle our communications via email to work through this process. So here's where we're at. The last time that we had an actual meeting with this group, both the EPA and Federal Highway asked that some new model runs be done by our consultant team to take a look at our emissions analysis. Those have been completed. The report that we turned in was revised, showing those new model runs. The EPA did accept that report and concurs with lifting the conformity freeze. The conformity freeze, though, actually has to be lifted through a joint letter between the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. EPA did provide them the specific language that they need to include in that letter when they take that action. However, the EPA, when they reviewed the revised report, had some additional comments and wanted some additional attachments included in that. So we're back to having Trinity update those, but this is all text and narrative. The model runs were acceptable to Federal Highways, and so I am supposed to receive a second revision of this report next week to turn back into the team for their review to make sure that we addressed all the federal highway administration comments. So I still feel like this is imminent, but we're just kind of like a week delay, 2 week delay, week delay. It's just getting stretched out a little bit here, but we're working hard behind the scenes to address every comment that we receive from our federal partners to make sure that they're satisfied with the final product. Also of note, this is on your agenda here today. I did draft 3 letters of support. One for the City of Fairbanks grant application to the T-Mobile Hometown Grant Program for the Lacey Street Starter Block Project. That one came in on very short notice. I believe I received the request from the city on September 26th, and the application was due September 30th. I went ahead and penned that, signed it, turned it in, and I'm notifying the board that I did that. It's in the packet here today. Normal processes is that I bring these letters of support through the technical committee and policy board if there's sufficient time for the board to approve it as a whole. But I also did draft 2 letters of support for borough applications to the Alaska Federal Lands Access Program for projects out at the Chena Lake Recreation Area and Tanana Lakes Recreation Area. So those have not been signed, but they're in your packet here today for approval. And as Mr. Cleaver stated, he'd like to see that the board also approve the one that I've already signed and turned in. It's kind of after the fact, but just to make sure that the board supports that action. Okay, next page, page 14. Under public outreach, last night we held our first open house for our long range transportation plan update at Nolan Library from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. That was also a format where there was stations for members of the public to work through, looking at our goals and objectives, having them identify what they view as transportation deficiencies, unsafe intersections, missing sidewalks, crumbled asphalt, or this bridges in a state of disrepair, et cetera. This road needs streetlights. And then it moved on to what's your, big idea for a transportation project that you'd like to see fast planning consider in a long range transportation plan update. And then some of our kind of existing conditions data collection was also presented to them. Pretty well attended last night. We were busy for 2 hours straight. I want to say over 50 people, members of the public attended. And most members that came to the door, it resulted in long conversations. It was very well staffed, not only by Fast Planning, but our consultant team with R&M and Michael Baker and Kinney Engineering. And we were all busy, but there was a lot of positivity in the room. So I kind of expected more complaints or issues that people brought up, but overall it was a pretty positive atmosphere last night. And we also concurrently with holding that, we made live yesterday our online public survey for this long range transportation plan update. It just has a few simple questions to fill out, but the main focus of this survey is to point people to an interactive map so they can put a pin on a map and identify, their transportation issue. Might be a bus stop location that needs a shelter. Lots of different things that are populating in there now. We have quite a few pins on the map as it being live as of I think about 2 p.m. or so yesterday. So yeah, if you can zoom in there, you can see folks. Maybe click on one.
Sure.
To kind of give an example.
So, maintenance issue, roadway surface condition. So,
So that looks like a pin on Cowell Street.
and we're trying to sort of like pre-sort them into buckets instead of people doing comments that might all kind of fall into the same category. So that it's a little bit of a challenge for folks at first because they want to be able to just do the comment, but it really helps us on the back end. And then we do have options for other, and then they can go into describing if they're not finding a way to sort their comment out. So yeah, it's been really fun so far.
And this will be live through November 11th. And Olivia is planning some additional pop-up events around the community. We discussed yesterday doing one out in North Pole. And I know that you have on your list to do one out at JP Jones Center. And there may be a third location.
Yeah, 2 more. We'll
2 more.
gather to touch base with kids. They're gonna do a trick or treat thing at Gather, and then probably Black Spruce as well.
Okay. Also underneath public outreach, Fast Planning staff did volunteer at the KUAC Fall Fundraiser Phone Bank. So we did that a week or so ago. And then underneath funding, just a reminder, I am working on an administrative modification and a separate amendment for our transportation improvement program. So the administrative modification runs to the technical committee and policy board, and all those minor revisions are approved at that policy board meeting on November 19th. The amendment has to be released for a 30-day public comment period. So some of the more major changes to projects will be the consideration for the policy board next month will simply be to release it for a 30-day public comment period. Likely that'll circle back to you probably in January for final approval of that amendment after we've resolved all the comments we've received from the public. And then lastly, page 15 has the letter of support for the city of Fairbanks grant application that I went ahead and took the liberty of authoring, signing, and providing to the city so they can include it with their grant application on their tight deadline. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Jackson. Any questions for Jackson? Mayor Hobbs?
Okay, a few, the meeting about winter maintenance coming up, was that the 10/28 meeting at the Moline Library, or is that a different date?
It's October 28th,
That is that,
next Tuesday evening. Yes.
okay. And then would a resolution from the different municipalities, all three of them, help or move along the conformity freeze letter? To urge them to make sure they don't dawdle after you get the background work done, that you guys can do so, but.
I don't think that that's necessary. They, all federal partners have indicated that they are supportive of lifting the conformity freeze. They just want to make sure that all the, i's are dotted and t's are crossed so that they can do this and have the backup. So these air quality things are commonly subject to litigation. They want to make sure that this is thorough.
Okay, it's a big deal, so I just wanted to see if we could make sure it doesn't get delayed somewhere later, and then one more question. The meeting you were talking about at the beginning with the different MPOs and state and federal highways. Was that the meeting that the requested between the MPOs and the DOT to work on better coordination with the STIP? Okay, that was my answer, no. You know the one I'm talking about? The meeting that the feds requested.
Those were held, we have two of those, on the new STIP. And then the third one was canceled by Federal Highways and there's been no circle back
Okay.
on that. That meeting was the MPO quarterly, which is a standing quarterly meeting, it's held between the MPOs. It rotates locations.
Okay. That's what I thought, I just.
Regular business,
Okay.
yeah.
That's what I thought, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. We're gonna move on to public comment period. This is on any item that is not an action item on our agenda. And we're gonna open up anybody in the room first. Seeing nobody, is there anyone online that wants to testify this afternoon? See.
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I don't see anybody here. We'll say public testimony is closed then. That brings us to item 7, old business. Intergovernmental operating agreement, metropolitan planning area boundary update. It's an action item. Before we get into that, a recap of a discussion we had yesterday on parliamentary procedure, which was interesting. Jackson brought forward that he thought that this item essentially had been tabled back in, was it January or February of this year? And that to be brought off the table would require a majority vote of the policy board members. Lauren Little spoke to it and said, well, that's not the same thing at all. It's a different item. And said that that would not be germane to that. And then I chimed in and said, well, my memory of tabling an item is essentially killing an item. And you would have to start it anew and afresh anyway. But after the meeting, I called our local guru, Danny at the city of Fairbanks, who's our parliamentarian. I said, Danny, this is my understanding of tabling an item. I said, essentially it kills it. She says, well, you're partially right. You table an item, if it's not brought up at the immediate following meeting of that body, then it's dead. But if it is brought up, then you just simply bring it on the floor again and pick up where you left off at the prior meeting. So I'm gonna go with that ruling, and my ruling on this will be that it is an action item like we always see in front of us, and we'll deal with it in that way, unless somebody has an objection to that. Mayor Hop.
Just to follow up on the clerk's viewing of that, does that mean the the operating agreement that was brought forward before is now dead because we did not bring it up on the immediate preceding or following meeting?
Correct,
Okay, so that's your ruling as the chair that that item is now dead and
that's right.
dead
So
and
this
buried.
should be handled as a normal action item in front of us. Okay, see no objection to that. Go to staff report first.
Okay, page 16 has the technical committee's recommendation to the board on this item from their September meeting. Provided Lauren Little was not able to attend our meeting in October. This item has delayed to come before you until, I'm sorry, the September policy board meeting. It's been delayed to come before you here today. The technical committee's recommendation was to approve the formation of a working group as requested to look at potential changes to the operating agreement, but only to form that working group after the Metropolitan Planning Area boundary has been approved by the governor. That motion was unanimous at that meeting, even with all state representatives voting in favor of that motion. Page 17, just as a reminder that you all tabled this item for further discussion or debate in February. And then pages 18 through 20 this has been in your meeting packet before, but this is the most recent federal planning finding on page 19. I highlighted the paragraph there that with clear statements from the Federal Highway Administration that the approval of the boundary update is a separate action from updating the operating agreement, and by changing the boundary, it does not trigger an update to the operating agreement. And then for new information, beginning on page 21, the municipality of Anchorage did complete a legal review of the requested changes to their operating agreement. They were sent a similar letter from the Commissioner's office to their MPO, as was sent to us. They did not retain outside counsel. They did this in-house with the deputy municipal attorney. The deputy municipal attorney did work with Federal Highway Administration staff to confirm that the legal assertions that they provided in this memo are the same interpretations as the Federal Highway Administration. This has been on the agenda with AMATS, the Anchorage MPO, similar to us. And this memo was presented to their policy board last Thursday at their meeting. So this is a memo that was in an open public document and gone over at their meeting last week. And I know the policy board had previously asked that if Anchorage completed a legal review, that be shared with this board. And so with my due diligence, it is now before you in the packet. And that concludes my introduction.
Thank you. Any questions for Jackson? Seeing none, we're gonna go to public testimony on this. Anyone within the room first? Nobody. Is there anybody online wishing to testify? I don't see any, so bring public testimony to a close. I need a motion. Put this before us for discussion, please.
I move to approve the technical committee's recommendation to form a working group to evaluate and recommend changes to the operating agreement.
We hear a second? I'd like to discuss it, so I'm gonna go ahead and second it. So it'll be Lauren Little and myself. So it's before you. Did you want to go ahead and start?
Sorry, real fast. We follow Robert's rules. Is the chair allowed to second an item?
Yeah,
Okay. I don't think the chair was allowed
I
to.
don't give up on vote.
They don't give up a vote for sure. But the second is different. I didn't think they were allowed. I'm not an expert, so
I don't think that violates anything that I know of in our bylaws.
we follow Robert's
It's
rules.
not-
Quick out, yeah.
It's not been normal practice for our board, the chair to make motions or 2 seconds, past practice.
I've made
But if someone
amendments.
could,
I've made a lot of amendments in the past. So.
And this is Nick. I'll second if that
That
helps.
works. Yes. Google AI says yes, the chair can second the motion.
Google AI is a known liar.
Thanks, John.
All right, go ahead. Lauren.
All right, I know everyone's favorite topic. So the discussion yesterday, to clarify, you know, the motion you tabled was DOT came, we said, here's the changes we want, you guys said, not happening. But this is not that. This is not DOT saying these are the changes. This is DOT saying we have some points that are not clear how we resolve. My goal with asking technical to operate on this was, one, have their buy-off and their buy-in on what changes need to make. We have all, we've all kind of been suffering through this fighting over a board, right? At the end of the day, the root cause of a conflict that led to that February motion was, you know, who has authority? Well, I don't really care who has authority. FAST, DOT, I want to know how we work through those disagreements in the future. You know, I've said it in a lot of forums. We as the state have a responsibility for performance metrics on the national highway system. We have a responsibility to the entire state in terms of how we program money, how we prioritize things, what we need to do to keep our infrastructure safe and operating. And I don't ever want our bodies to be in the position of having to argue over authority and not be able to move forward collaboratively. And so I want to see dispute resolution procedures in our agreement. We ultimately agree to mediation as solutions to these things. Maybe it's the same as it is. At the end of the day, the authority lies with federal highways in who is going, they ultimately determine whether a project can be authorized or not, and the federal funds used on it, and the governor. He is ultimately responsible for approving or not approving the tip. And further, the state is responsible and has the authority on which projects get selected from the tip. So that's the starting of a project is ultimately the state's responsibility. There's some differences in the large NPO on that, in the CFRs, but those are the authorities. The rest of it is for us to work out as two bodies. I think there's some other things that have come up over the last couple of STIP cycles, railroad projects. Now, things that the railroad was doing that didn't used to show up in the tips. Now we've gotten direction from federal highways that need to show up in the tips. They don't have a vote at this table at all. Yet their program and their ability to use federal funding on their infrastructure is now at the mercy of this board. Some of the 3C conversations we've been going on, when information needs to be coordinated, how it needs to be coordinated, get that stuff in writing so that we don't ever put ourselves in this position of fighting. And standing up in front of legislatures and trying to explain ourselves, that's silly. We can do better. Let's just get technical working on this. And I think we know where the holes are, and let's just get it clear how we're gonna work through those things in the future. This is not DOT saying, make these changes. This is DOT asking FAST, can we please clear these things up in writing? The operating agreement is the document that documents our relationship and how we're gonna all interact together as bodies. So that is my speech. I rest.
Mr. Krasny.
I'd like to move to table this item to our next meeting.
I'll second for discussion.
Thanks. I don't know that I will be on this board at our next meeting. We're gonna reorganize. I'm appointed by the presiding officer. I think, or did you, no, it's a presiding officer. And, we'll have a new mayor. I think that this is, we outlined, we just heard a tremendous amount of policy implications that will come from this decision. And the board that's gonna have to live with them is going to be, they're gonna be new faces in a month. And so I think it'd be appropriate for that group to undertake this decision.
Lauren,
So just to be clear, this is simply forming a working group to provide recommendations. The future policy board is ultimately the one that would vote to accept those recommendations. This is simply asking for the formation and for that group to develop recommendations. This is not binding this group of people or any future group of people to an actual modification to the document.
Mayor Hopkins.
You might have just said this, I apologize if I missed the word. Did you view this as the technical committee creating a working group or the policy committee creating a working group?
This, to me, is the policy board requesting a working group from the technical committee. I think we would probably maybe pick who we would want on that, but not necessarily. I don't have strong feelings. I do think that the initial list of recommendations should come from technical.
Mayor Church.
Per the technical committee's recommendation, the bottom half of that is the formation of the working group shall only occur after the metropolitan planning area boundary has been approved by the governor. These are two, in my mind, two very separate topics of discussion about where the boundary is, and then from that, once we have where the boundary is located and that little red line is set for us to discuss, then we can move forward with the remainder of that. So moving forward, if I may request, when this topic comes up, that we separate two totally different items that are very much related, and not try and deal with those as one action item.
Mayor Hopkins.
Does that, now I guess some more questions, does that mean the motion that was recommended by the technical committee, you would see bifurcating that or keeping it as one together so we can get the boundary off the table and then go forward with the working group like the technical committee suggested?
I agree with what they said in their
Okay.
recommendation. But two very difficult items to deal with at the same time, one before the other, as stated in their recommendation, Judge.
Lauren.
So just to be clear, the MPA boundary is not within. There is no action item for fast plan. You have made your recommendation on what the boundary should be, you've approved it, it is in the state's court now as to whether or not they approve it. And just for some context, we actually were having this conversation with law about both AMATs and FAST. You guys have very different boundary situations. But we were just starting to have that conversation about, hey, is it time to just send these up to the governor and let him approve or deny them? When Western Alaska was hit. So that is a conversation. It's not being ignored. It just, the timing was very unfortunate there of when those conversations started ramping back up again. So I don't know what ultimately will be decided on those boundaries, independent of the operating agreements. DOT's legal perspective initially was that what happened with a series of projects ultimately was a change in decision-making authority by the MPOs. And therefore, the
Point of order.
wordings. But again, that's a new conversation that we are revisiting and circling back around on.
What's your point of order?
I'd like to discuss my motion, which was to table this to our next meeting.
You give a lot of leeway to things like that, but I would say, would you consider doing a postponement rather than tabling, getting into that rule law again?
I'm happy to, yes.
Amend the motion to postpone it to the, I will amend the motion to postpone it to the next meeting.
Yep.
As opposed to, as instead of table.
You're withdrawing the original one.
Sure.
Sure.
And I'll make the motion to postpone it to the next.
Moved by Mayor Hopkins, seconded by Mr. Kravitz, right? Okay. Thank you. That makes things a little simpler here. Mayor Church.
Not to confuse the situation, and maybe we should take a vote on the original postponement before we go back to discussing this, but looking at the boundary, I'm concerned about Eielson Farm Road. And the Salcha areas, that's the main source of transportation if the highway does get shut down and their funding structure under this. I don't necessarily want to go way back down that road to 2023, long before I was part of this board to reevaluate the boundary, but it certainly is a concern that we think about in emergency planning. So if there's any way that the state would be willing to maintain that better than it has been maintained, or find a suitable workaround, or maybe that's an action item for a future meeting that we add to the agenda to bring up Eielson Farm Road as a needed concern for the North Pole Fairbanks area as a main route of transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Other discussion? I guess a few of my thoughts here, get to the motion here. If we're going to postpone, I'd like to know what we hope to do at the next meeting or be done. And as Scott is right, I mean, there could be two of us that are not here or whatever. That's gonna be a lot for people to pick up. I don't have a big problem with forming a committee. And if it's, and my big question today was, who's supposed to be on that thing? You're getting into some very technical stuff and legal stuff. And that's why I voted against this back in the early part of the year, because when we formed this organization, it was extremely difficult for all the legal entities that get into the same frame of mind that we could actually create fast planning. The state of Alaska took some time. The two cities are pretty easy. The borough at the time was kind of the fly in the ointment to kind of drug their feet, but they got in line and we finally got it done. But that took a lot of effort and time. So any change you do to an operating agreement is going to be be bought off by each of the four entities that we have here. And that's going to be tricky. So I understand there are problems that we might have that could be ironed out in a more explicit operating agreement. And I just pose one hypothetical, and I have, maybe Jackson can respond to this. Let's say the city of Fairbanks goes ahead with Minnie Street. And we've got a plan and we lay it all out, present it to the board, and the board says, we don't like your plan. We don't like it at all, and question the money on it. So city goes its own way and says, council says, no, but this is the way we want to do it. This is what engineering wants to do, public works, the whole bit. This is how we're going to do it. How is that resolved amicably? I mean, what would be the protocol there? Does this power supersede the city, or can the city go its own way?
It's the will of this board, not an individual entity. So this board approves our long-range plan and our short-range plan, and it gets down to the specific project title, it gets down to the specific project scope, and the amount of money that is devoted to that project. So, yeah, if there's a modification to a road project that the board as a whole disagrees with, they can have that project. I mean, if it's already in process, if it's already in design, right, it's already been funded to a specific scope. But if an entity deviates from that scope, or the price escalates beyond what we could potentially afford, that's a, case by case, and it's a board decision on how to modify that as it moves forward. So
other than the money issue, which we do control.
Yep.
Would it be your opinion that the board could say, this part of the plan, we just really object to, and would they trump the city?
as far as the design, yes, that could happen. So when projects get nominated to us and scored, it's based on a very specific scope. This is gonna be, we're gonna repave the road, we're gonna underground the utilities, we're gonna put in 10-foot wide sidewalks. When you nominate a project, that's what it's scored upon. And so if the scope of that project is modified during the design process, it's no longer consistent with what was awarded funding. So you have to lock yourself in early on these projects into what you would like. If the scope changes, then you need to come back to the board for approval of that modification of the scope, and that would be either through an administrative modification or amendment to the tip. Scope changes, it's not just funding changes that are part of this, it's also scope changes.
Appreciate that, yeah. Yeah, I've always wondered what happens when an entity really is in objection to the policy board, so, Laura.
And I'll just let you know, this is played out over and over again. What Jackson said is exactly right. Project will just get removed from the tip. Policy board does not agree with the direction it's going. And it's really fun when policy boards change over. You get new people, projects been going for several years, you know, and these projects take years to develop. New individuals join policy, don't like the project, and they'll kill it, and that's where that federal payback conversation. It's part of what we've been pushing on with full pay maps and fast to make sure we have a clear project killing direction, so we understand who's gonna be responsible. If the state or the city was paying local match, you know, that's money that you're out, that your financial, you know, authorities didn't necessarily, was not your chain of command that made that decision, yet you're stuck with that financial implication.
Question for you, this is postponed to the next meeting. You recommended possibly technical committee, forming a committee to do this essentially. What about legal? Would there be any legal, are you envisioning legal participation, sir?
I would expect that everyone, any proposed changes to the operating agreement would at some point receive a legal review from each body's legal teams. But that would be at the time of, here's the changes we think need to happen. That's to me when legal would step in and go, yes, that's okay, no, that's not gonna work. So that would be a step in that final recommendations.
Or the members of the committee could seek out legal advice if they want to, so, okay.
Correct.
Just want to be clear at the next meeting what might be on your agenda, so. Okay, any other discussion before we take a vote here?
I just, you know, so we're on the amendment to postpone, a motion to postpone. I think a lot of what we've talked about is part of why I am nervous about deferring this. I mean, we're talking about multiple committee members needing to come up to speed on how we got here. That's gonna be a lot of education. Again, this is not a motion to make changes. This is a motion to recommend changes. I just see that being unproductive, postponing this decision at this point.
I guess what I'd like to see is, you know, in the motion itself, when it comes back, is a specific suggestion as to what the composition of that committee is supposed to be. But there's no question and debate on that. We can vote it up or vote it down. Maybe I'll put some thought into that at that time. So anyway, any other discussion? Mayor Hopkins.
You know, Laura was saying that the DOT and the governor and the legal was looking at coming back or re-looking at the possibility of the boundary change and amendments and approval. And those being two separate items, like Mayor Church definitely said, I agree with. I think for postponement, see if that decision is made in the next 30 days would be advantageous, and then other reasons to see it. We don't need to have a dual process or dual step motion at once, because I agree with Mayor Church and the technical committee that those should be separate things, and so we should take one off the table before we move forward, and it'd be interesting to see what direction the state decides to go in the next 30 days.
I'll be honest, I think the state's gonna be pretty distracted in the next 30 days. That said, I'm totally fine amending my motion to include the formation not occurring until after boundary approval. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other there. I do agree for fast in particular. The two are a bit more divorced in your boundary is a little more straightforward. I'd have to circle back with the AG to see if there were still some questions about that expansion in the Richardson Highway. AMAT's fabulous. expanded pretty significantly outside of the census organized area. It has bigger questions.
We've been waiting a while for the approval of the boundary. I think we can wait 30 days to see if it's something we can move forward with, otherwise. Man, I think it's important to see that approved, even though 10 years ago it was never exactly approved. There's no evidence that it was signed off by, I think that'd be Walker at that time. They do it part out, I don't remember, but it was used in all the planning documents and everything for the last decade, so. It should be the one that we're moving forward on, so either way, I think it'd be important to see what we see in the next 30 days from the administration, and there's enough people there. I think they can walk and chew gum at the same time to deal with the flooding in Western Alaska and the boundary change.
The motion is postponed, you cannot make an amendment now.
Oh, no, I understand.
At the next meeting you can, if that's your intent, it's good to note that now. How you want that thing to be formed, so, any other discussion? Jackson, would you call the roll on postponement to the next meeting?
Mayor Hopkins.
Yes.
Mr. Cleaver,
Yes,
Mr. Grass,
Yes.
Mayor Church. Yes. Ms. Little,
No,
yeah, Mr. Zarnecki.
No.
okay, motion passes 5-2. Good discussion. Brings us to item 8A, best planning, banking and investment options. It's a reminder when I had my ill-fated amendment to reduce our $1 million budget by a couple $100,000, we got into actually trying to look at it a little different and how to make some money. And we've had some good discussion there and kind of tasked Jackson with looking into it. And I know Mayor Church has looked into it and I have as well, but Jackson, why don't you take us through that?
Yeah, beginning on page 41 is a memo to the policy board on the limited research that I conducted during our last meeting and today here. As Mr. Cleaver stated, I was kind of tasked with looking into banking and investment options for our operating capital that we have in a singular bank account at Mount McKinley. It is a checking account. Over the past 7 years, we've been in business. It's grown to about $1 million balance. And we're not making any interest off of that balance. Over time, we've built quite a bit of confidence in our process here as far as our monthly expenditures and billing our grant and getting reimbursements on a monthly basis. And it is definitely of my opinion that all of that funding that is in that account we do not need ready access to. So some of that can be moved over to another account where we could potentially gain some interest. I did speak with Mayor Church. I did speak with the CFO at the city of Fairbanks. I did reach out to 2 banking institutions, one that we bank with, one that we don't bank with. And I also reached out to the Alaska Municipal League to kind of pick people's brains on different options. But I was kind of limited to looking at, interest-bearing accounts, whether that's savings or checking, CDs of different terms. And as I went through that process, I learned about, I kept hearing this word AMLIP. I didn't know what that meant. So this was new to me, but it's the Alaska Municipal League Investment Pool. And that particular pool of funds is something that the city of Fairbanks, city of North Pole, and the Fairbanks North Star Borough, all 3 local governments here at the table do invest into that pool. And in speaking with the 2 different banking institutions, they indicated to me that that's the best return rate that you're going to get for what we're looking at investing in. My key assumptions in the investment is, I think that we should reserve 4 to 6 months of operating capital, so cash flow in our account should things happen, like with the government shutdown, potentially a grant reimbursement may not come through. That hasn't happened to us. I don't really foresee that happening in this circumstance, but anyways, that things like that could come up in the future. We're averaging about $60,000 a month in expenditures, and that's typically what we get reimbursed each month. And so I want to, again, maintain at least a few months of that in case we have to liquidate some of our investment to cover expenses should we not get a grant reimbursement that comes through. Looking at $1 million, I'm pretty comfortable going up to about $700,000 to go into an investment account or multiple accounts. I would like to reserve $250,000 to $300,000 in our checking account, for again, a few months worth of activity. Maybe that's a little bit too conservative. You guys might want to get more aggressive. It's up to the board. But I also think that this investment should be low risk and we really need to protect that principal investment. Because just as a reminder, the bulk of that money that we have in our account, $696,000 is membership fees that were paid by the borough, the two cities in the state. And should this corporation ever dissolve, we have to return that money to these local governments. And so I don't want to get ourselves into a high risk investment where potentially we could lose our principal. Also, liquidity of the investment is important. If the board decides to dissolve the corporation, I have to cut those checks within 60 days back to each of the local governments there. So, or if we need access to it. So liquidity is important, but even when you look at CDs, whether it's a year long or 2 year long, you can still pull the money out with a penalty, which won't be that significant. But again, everything kind of pointed to the AML investment pool. Page 42 has a table that I put together. The rates there for CDs is not accurate based on my research here. I mean, we can get a 9-month CD for 3.5%. So I do need to revise this table here. A couple banks, the banks in town will compete with each other, match each other's rates. So if you see one better, another bank will match it. But again, everything kind of pointed to the AML investment pool. Now I did reach out to the Alaska Municipal League. I would think that it would be in our interest to join as a member. We can become a nonprofit member for $350 a year of AML. But they asked for all of our operating documents, which I shared with AML, and they passed those on to their legal counsel. And they did determine that as our organization currently exists, we would be eligible to participate in this investment pool. So we are cleared through AML, and they have reported that out to the bank in which you would set up an account with to begin the investment. I do have some questions on this page for the policy board. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't know what I don't know. Some of the key assumptions that I just mentioned to you all, maybe there's additional ones I should consider, or maybe you think that some of those key assumptions are wrong. There might be other investment or banking options that you are all individually aware of, or if you visit with your, financial officer at your organization, they might be able to give me a new lead to go down another rabbit trail to look at some other option. And another thing I thought of is that, maybe it would be worth my while to consult with an independent financial advisor, one that's not associated with some of these banks, to get their take on what some banking and investment options should be for me. So I included this as a discussion item today, not necessarily for action, because my research was limited. I think we have a good option on the table here. And you all may want to go with that and discuss how much you want to invest. But also, if you want me to do more research, I'm happy to do that. If we have any individuals you'd like me to speak with, I'm happy to do that. But at the end of the day, when this comes back before the board for action, it will be in the form of a board resolution, to open up a new account, and you would all need to specify the investment amount so that I have my paperwork and have the authorization to execute the will of this board.
Thank you, Jackson. Questions before we go forward here? This is not an action item, so actually, I really want to do it. Scott?
Do any of the other FPOs in the state or use? I went through the list. They didn't jump out on my list of clients there.
The MPOs themselves do not invest in this fund. They are not on the list. Let's see.
I was just curious how like AMATS might.
AMAS is a department of the municipality of Anchorage. So if Anchorage participated in this,
Mhm.
but it's none of their funding, it's Anchorage money.
Mhm.
And then, for the Matsu area, they're a nonprofit similar to us, that they're not at that stage where they're looking to make any investments. They're just kind of get their operations going, and they're kind of testing the waters with how things work month to month, from year to year. Yeah, I see City of Wasilla on here, City of Palmer. So yeah, a few other local governments participate in this as well down in that area.
Thanks.
Mayor Church?
With the investment, do we have anything in our rules or regulations that would prohibit FAST from receiving the interest income from the city's investments? Or would we have to do a separate resolution stating that FAST can use and receive the proceeds from the city's initial investment?
The city's initial, you mean Fast Planning's
Yes.
initial investment?
Yes.
So when I spoke with the CFO of the city of Fairbanks, Margarita Bell, she has a lot of nonprofit experience and she didn't think that there was any issue with this. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the IRS code on if we invest and we're making interest, we're still a nonprofit, corporation. But any money that we receive has to be used for our nonprofit purpose and our mission for this organization. So I think it's more so how the money is used. But anyways, that can be clarified if I can find appropriate counsel for that. So anyways, I don't see that as an issue. I do see on the list here, there are other nonprofits that participate on this list.
Okay, I would suggest that, for two reasons. A, our auditor, may want to see that resolution that we as a policy board have allowed that to be used as part of our funding.
Mhm.
And then being able to switch that and reaching out to another investment pool, or another possible investment company may run into an insurance issue from an auditor standpoint about how our money and our investment is protected. With a Mount McKinley CD at 3.5% or Amlet is more of a trust. In the CD, we would have to, it would be protected from an auditor standpoint, I would think, versus getting involved into other options like stock market or Edward Jones or Vanguard or some such thing like that.
Other discussion? I think the first question we need to ask, are we willing to go at risk with any of this, or we do want to take no risk for the investment? Have insured funds or go another route. And I think that's the first thing we need to look at. My understanding with AML is the way the city works is that we have an account here at Key Bank, and I think anyone that deals with AML has to have an account at Key Bank to act as a custodian for it. And the monies are then turned over to, I think, APCM, Alaska Permanent Capital Management. They just changed their name, and I forget what, anybody knew their new name?
Alaska Permanent Capital Management.
Yeah. That's who the city uses for the permanent fund, but anyway. And I don't know what other investment vehicles are using, in all honesty. I didn't dig that far. That's. And something Mayor Church said yesterday about, being a trust or something. Is the money at risk? Is there a risk? With the city's permanent fund, we are at risk on our equities and things of that nature, not so much on the bonds. Do we want to take that risk? Personally, I don't think we should with public money like that. I think there should be an insured account of some sort. And then we should set the amount of what we want to do. I think 800,000 would be a very safe amount to do. Whether it's on a 9-month TD or whatever you want to do there, but I think that's the first question. Do you want to take risk or do you want to go the safe way? Lauren?
I guess to answer that, I would want to understand what our goals for that money would be. I mean, is the goal to start growing FAST coffers to where we could start doing projects above and beyond federal allocation, or removing local match requirements and using fast planning money for match? Or is this simply, gosh, it's silly to have money just sitting there not growing interest? Then yeah, to me that safety then makes a lot of sense. But if it's to be a little bolder and start being able to deliver more for the community, then higher growth maybe starts penciling out.
Okay, Nick, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. And I like where this discussion is going with the, talk of risk and what the money would be used for. And Jackson, have you done any rough calculations for what the annual return would be based on an $800,000 investment at the, roughly 4 to 4.5% rate?
It's just north of 30,000, I believe, per year.
No, thank you. So yeah, that's when we're taking into account risk. It's what level of risk do we want to take for, $30,000 gain, and how would that be used?
Mayor Church.
So yeah, I kind of base numbers on rough estimates as AMLET moves around. I sort of figured at 800 or 850. It would be north of at least 25,000 as that interest rate rolls. And north of 19 or right at 19, if we were to go the 9-month CD. The difficult part about the CD is you're locked in for 9 months. I love the fact that it is in a local bank. It's very much protected. AMLET is very much protected. So those are sort of the two options that I would go to. As far as protection and for the money and what it should be spent on. We sort of have $150,000 a year that we take out of funding to operate this office. And I think having that money grow and go towards operation of offices, no matter how we split that pie, it benefits our community by at least $20,000 more a year for our community. Of just having it sit there, and it is a big deal. And how we distribute that money. To me, it doesn't matter. It's back into our community, no matter how we look at it. So thank you for bringing it up and having it be an action item. Your diligence, Jackson, and looking through the different options.
Okay, where do we go from here?
Can we make a motion even though it's not an action item, or just make a suggestion for our next meeting?
Good question.
Robert's Rules crash course today.
I guess I would prefer it to be an action item in case somebody put on for the next agenda. Why don't we just have a recommendation for a motion? And to me, the big one is, do we want to be at risk or not? That's the first hurdle. And I could go either way on it, but when it comes to public money, I tend to be a little risk aversion, tends to go my way here, but we're not. Maybe we could do more project internally, but our main purpose here is to protect our office here, make sure we have the proper funding, protect the monies that have been put in by the municipalities. That's to me first and foremost, rather than scoring a kill in the markets. And I don't know about you, but 2008 still rings true in my mind what happened to the markets then, and we're way overdue for something like that. It may not happen in my lifetime, who knows, but sooner or later, people are gonna figure out our country can't live on debt. Something's gonna happen. So I'm open to ideas for an action item for next time. Your church.
Jackson, if we were to invest 800,000 in 9 months at a time through a CD, would that leave you with any sort of heartburn, knowing that if in an emergency you had to remove that CD, we would lose some of that interest gain?
No, I'm fine with it.
Chances of that happening are so remote.
Agreed. I just want to make sure that we prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and we'll land somewhere in the middle.
Mayor Hopkins.
So that CD would be outside of the AMLET investment pool. Correct?
That would be a Mount McKinley CD, and in their 9-month CD with the account that we already have at McKinley.
Yeah. I like the idea of the AMLET investment. I think it would be well protected in there. The city's got its money in there. I don't think the borough does. It was mentioned at an assembly meeting, but it's not on the list.
It is on the list. It's on the next page. Like very top, the column.
Oh, the very last one. That's why I didn't see that there. Okay. I was wondering, because it was brought up just the other day in the assembly meeting and it was a yes. So I was confused. That makes sense. Thank you. you know, I think that they have a very strong fiduciary responsibility to protect the money of all these different members into AMLIP, so I think it would be a safe investment into there. Is where I would like to see it, if they'll allow us in there. It looks like with Southeast Alaska Municipal Conference, things like that, they would. So I would be interested in a resolution saying we want to invest that similar amount into AMLIP to not score a big killing in the market, as you said, Mr. Chair, but a little bit more, and the flexibility to grow, and the flexibility to take it out as needed and to join the other municipal efforts in Alaska to help with that. And it would be a decent amount if we put 800,000 in on a $800 million fund that it's also running here that they have. I think AMLIP would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Laura.
How long has this AMLIT fund been around?
I don't,
I don't have an answer, but there is a date certain on the website. It might be since 2020, but I don't. Anyways, I can find that information.
Yeah, I guess-
It's on their website.
Just for me, the AML, you know, and maybe it's just been at the different levels as I've stepped up, you know, to get exposed to them, they sort of came out of nowhere a little bit, and I think that's maybe my only hesitation there is just understanding stability of that. You know, CD is very stable. But I don't have strong feelings on any of this, other than, you know, letting the money sit as smart.
there's various options too, right? For
Yeah, AMLIP has a series 1 and series 2, but different liquidities. That's on page 49. You can compare those.
Okay,
I don't know if the board would be open to this, but do you want me to bring you dueling resolutions? Like bring you a resolution for a CD and then a resolution for AMLIP, and then you guys make a choice?
Yeah, I think that would be great. I think we're gonna have to put, you know, some options in front of us and pick a path, you know, and probably might consider, you know, some outlet, I don't know, like bar of gold and a shotgun and it's just.
I might have a conflict of interest.
The shotgun or the gold
The
gun?
golden part,
Yeah.
Mayor Church.
Thank you.
If we go the AMLIP route, I would suggest a more aggressive investment. If we have $1 million there and we know that our 2-month, 3-month is 60,000, we could probably increase that to 900, knowing that we're 1 to 3 days to pull that money back if needed without creating too much of a difficulty in-house with accounting to have to make sure of that. And with the 9-month, knowing that we really want to leave that invested in a 9-month CD, I would recommend a lesser amount. My 2 cents.
Scott.
If we, you had mentioned the sort of the dollar amount as if the board dissolves, we have to repay the initial investments. Is there interest involved with that, or is it just we hand back what was handed to us?
No interest. It would be $2019. That's minus inflation. Or without inflation, yeah.
I guess what I'm hearing, I kind of like the idea of having 2 action items. You can pick one, essentially a risk-free one, going by a TD or a 9-month type thing we're talking about. The other one, the ML. And then before the next meeting, we could get possibly somebody that's more familiar with that than we are to be here to ask questions of, because you have different options through them.
Mhm.
And can we make one decision here today, possibly? I know it can be changed, but the amount of money we're talking about, 800,000, so bring up agreeable to most people.
Does that leave enough working capital for you guys? We wanted a few months worth of liquidity available.
I was just being conservative saying 700, but if you guys want to go up to 800, that's. And the liquidity of the AMLIP is, you know. Series 1 is 1 day, I can make withdrawal, the other one takes 3 days, it's not a, if you want to go up to 800 on AMLIP. I'm good.
Well, that number can be changed too.
Yeah.
Just work with that number for the time being.
Okay.
To give you some kind of guideline here. And I'll talk to Margarita, we can talk to her and see if she's got somebody in town here that's real savvy on this and maybe have a presentation. Okay. Thank you, board. That brings us to item 8B, letters of support for NFSB grant applications to Alaska Federal Lands Access Program. This is an action item. You got a staff report first?
Yeah, so for this action item, it will technically include all three letters of support. The one that I've already signed last month and provided to the city for T-Mobile grant application for the Lacey Street Starter Block project. And the other two are on pages 51 and 53 in your packet. The first one in there for the borough, again, for the Alaska Federal Lands Access Program. This is for a bundle of projects out of Tamarack Lakes Recreation Area, converting several trails from gravel to pavement. Some new viewpoints along the lake and river, adding some wayfinding signage and new connectors to complete the loop around the lake and enhancing multiple trailheads. And there's a figure for that on page 52. And then the next letter is for Chino Lake Recreation Area. And this is a singular project to build a new trail that doesn't currently exist around the north side of the lake. And this would tie directly into our project where we're building a new access road and trailhead parking lot off of Black Road. So this complements something that's already in design and headed to construction probably in 2027. And this particular program here, the Alaska Federal Lands Access Program, this funding may likely not be available till 2027 anyways, for if this is awarded due to their existing project obligations. But anyways, just some simple letters of support. So I believe their applications are due either October 30th or October 31st. So this meeting's timely to get these signed and over to them this week.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll go to public comment. Is there anyone wishing online or here in the room to testify on this today? Seeing no one, public comment is closed. I need a motion.
Make a motion of support for the letters of support for the grants for the applications to the Alaska Federal Lands Access Program.
Second.
Moved by Mayor Church, seconded by Mr. Kress. Discussion? Mr. Kress.
Just the value that has been found out here to our community is just incredible. I absolutely support, expanding the trail system out there, upgrading them. I was out there with my kids' class recently. They were biking around in the area. And what was once just a blighted area of our community has turned into just a wonderful place for folks to recreate. Yeah, fully support.
Anyone else? Go ahead and call.
Okay, Mayor Church,
Yes.
Ms. Little,
Yes.
Mayor Hopkins,
Yes.
Cleary,
Yes,
Mr. Krass,
Yes.
Mr. Zarnecki.
Yes.
that's a 6-0, 7-0. No, 6. Mayor Cruz not here. That brings us to item number 9, informational items. Go ahead, Jackson.
Yeah, obligations and offsets, beginning on page 55. This is our final report for the end of federal fiscal year 2025. On this first page here, 100% of our surface transportation program dollars, planning funds and transportation alternative program dollars were obligated. On the next page, page 56, there are a few obligations that did not occur before federal fiscal year end. One is the Borough Hybrid Fleet Vehicle Pilot Program. If that obligation, would you have a
Oh, the University of Evansville did confirm that one was obligated. In that.
Wonderful. Okay, so the biggest one that I did not get in my report that was obligated for the University Avenue South Bicycle Pedestrian Path, that obligation did occur, so I'll fill that out in there. In any event, we're still waiting on the obligation for the Borough Hybrid Fleet Vehicle Program. The Borough bus bike racks. That was a proposal that was not taken to the assembly, so that funding will be reprogrammed to other projects. And then the North Pole High School Access and Circulation Study, we are carrying that funding forward to FFY 26. So we'll be working on a scope on that to make that obligation. But the sidewalk snow removal equipment for the borough was obligated before federal fiscal year end. And that concludes my report. The next time that you see this, it will be blank with the FFY 2026 obligations.
Thank you. Item number 10, other issues, any other issues that need to be brought up? Seeing none, we'll go on to policy board comments. Mr. Zarnecki, we're gonna start with you.
No additional comments from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Hopkins.
In his absence, please thank, Mayor Cruz, if anybody talked to him, for his service on here. I enjoyed working with him on here, and I thoroughly enjoyed all the different ways our votes would go over the last 12 months. Never knew who was gonna vote for which, what, and how, and that was, I think, healthy democracy. And so I just wanted to say thank you to Mayor Cruz and, our other two appointed members. If you guys stay on, see you in a month. If not, just wonderful working with you too. But I know you guys are gonna be around for plenty more years, and, we'll be able to do it. That'll be able to do good things, whatever happens for past planning. So, just want to say thanks to Mayor Cruz and Susan.
Thank you. Lauren.
Yeah, I think I'll echo Mayor Hopkins. It's miss Mayor Cruz's sense of humor here today, sure. It was a fun addition for the short period we overlapped as well as Scott, Barry. I do hope you guys do continue with us and bring a really great balancing perspectives. And appreciate the energy and enthusiasm, the extra work of being chair put into this.
Mayor Church.
I'd like to echo the previous comments and then to thank the technical committee. They really are a big driver of our policy board and all the effort that they do to really dive into deep to recommend good, healthy recommendations for our community is a big piece. So thank you to them for that.
Thank you, Mr. Kress.
Yeah, continuing, I wish he was here to hear his accolades, but thanks to Mayor Cruz for his work on here. And thanks to you and myself as well.
You can thank yourself.
Yeah. If I am not to return, I'm sure I will come visit. It's been a pleasure this last year. We tackled some very important issues for our community. I think the work that happens here is just vital and often goes overlooked. But I look forward to seeing what the next iteration of this policy board has in store as well.
Thank you. Several comments. First, the question for Olivia. Last year we're creating a kind of a cheat sheet for people that coming on, all the acronyms and all that. Do we have hard copies of that?
Yep, that's right up front. We've got a few copies.
They're right there, okay.
Take one if you'd like. It's the red, it says transportation.
To
costs.
Mindy, that's a great initiation. A lot of time and effort into to try and help people up. The acronyms around here are a little bit overwhelming. All the plans and things we're supposed to develop and do, it's a little overwhelming. But hopefully that can help you. We spent time this year on the bylaws of the organization, put a lot of time and effort into that. I think made some good changes and updates. We have the two other policies, which is the operating agreement we've talked about here. And I certainly don't mind, taking a look at these things and seeing if they need any updating. That one is just a heavy thing to tackle. I'll try and make any changes, but every now and then I think things need to be looked at. We have a personnel policy that I think Jackson and I helped create back in the beginning. I don't think we've ever really gone through that.
We've not done a review of that since.
Sometimes I should probably take a look at that and see if it needs any updating. I'm not aware of anything. Those are the three things we're kind of responsible for. And I think our Public Works Department has possibly found a vehicle for fast planning. They need to go take a look and make sure that would really fit the needs of what we have here. But Mayor Prus did inform me that they think they have located something, so. Maybe that can save us a few bucks, maybe not if it's a dilapidated thing. And finally, I wanna go on my annual rant about brine. So you could carry the message back to DOT, as I am in my garage looking at the floor and all the white stains on it. And the floor mats of my car, and this is all from Airport Way. I think, gosh, if we could get rid of that stuff, so I just put that out there for whoever at DOT might be looking into it. Have they ever talked about changing that policy or not, do you know?
I mean, what would we change it to? I mean, we don't have any other way, especially as we move to these warmer, wetter winters
Well,
to.
the city uses gravel, essentially the pea gravel. And we've never used brine at all. It's only really on Airport Way on the state maintained roads, but. Or at the very least, just use it at the intersection, not all the way down the highway. Like
Well, what happens is we spray it at the intersection and then the cars carry it. That's what you're seeing. We're not, it's less expensive. We're not spraying it.
I just love to get rid of that stuff. Anyway, that's my 2 cents for it, but. Hope I'm here next time, but who knows? Been a joy working with y'all. And I thought Mayor Hopkins' comments, you really didn't know how people are putting the vote. I mean, in the past, that you can always tell, they vote in blocks. The 2 DOT people, the 2 borough people, 2 city, and the poor mayor of North Pole gets the one vote to break whatever ties come up. But the last year, I had no idea. And I think that's a joy. On that, Richard, yeah. I'm funny.